All right, welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast, Part 2, with none other than referee Jimmy Korderas from the World Wrestling Federation and the WWE, of course. Jimmy, thanks for joining us once again.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
It's great to have you back here. We've got some more great content to cover throughout your career. Let's kick it off with, did you prefer to call a lot of the stuff in the ring, or were you one to kind of go over more of it backstage? What did you prefer?
For me, I just wanted to know what I needed to know. You know, for me, natural reaction, I think, is best. I mean, one of the things that that I see a lot now is, I hate to put it this way, but a lot of referees nowadays, they know what's coming, so they know how they're supposed to react, and sometimes don't react in a natural fashion. It looks like they're trying to react to what they're seeing, even because they know it's coming. Sure. That's one of the reasons why I liked working with Eddie Guerrero so much. Like, I would get with Eddie, and if I had his match, and Eddie, okay, what are we doing tonight? He said, okay, frog splash. I go, is there anything else I need to know? He said, no, you'll know it when you see it. And that was more on the house shows, but at TV, he would give me bullet points. Like, especially during the lie, cheat, and steal days. Okay, we're going to need you here to do this and this and this for the lie, cheat, and steal, so we can get away with all this sort of stuff. But for me personally, I'd like to know as little as possible, except for the stuff I absolutely need to be aware of, like heels cheating behind my back in a certain fashion. Tell me you're going to do it. Tell me as little as you can tell me without having to spell it out word for word with me. You know what I mean? Let me react to it. I will help you out. You can tell me in the ring, make sure, don't turn around yet, whatever the case may be. But I like knowing, but just don't overproduce.
Yeah. And was that a little harder to do when working with the Macho Man, since he was so detail oriented when it came to his matches, or did that not really affect that? It didn't really affect it for me, because I was still, when I was working with Randy, I was still relatively young and learning still a lot. Not that I ever stopped learning. You always continue to learn. But then I was more of the preferring to know everything, at that stage. Yeah. And as my career grew and I started to feel more comfortable being able to get into a match without knowing absolutely everything. Yeah. But with Randy, that's the way he wanted it. You got it. And I'll do my best. You know what I mean? And it didn't bother me at all. And was there ever a superstar that was there at the same time you were throughout the years, and you just, for whatever reason, never got to referee one of their matches, and it's just like, man, it bothered you, like, I wish I could have reffed one of their matches?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I've thought of people who have been there after I was there that I wish I could have refereed matches, or someone that was with the other company that I wish I could have refereed matches for, like Sting. I mean, we were never there at the same time, but he was someone that I wish I could have refereed one of his matches. I thought he was tremendous. As far as somebody who was there at the same time as me, it's hard to say, because I pretty much refereed almost everybody. Yeah. So no one comes to mind. Sorry.
No, that's a good thing. I mean, Yeah. You don't have to look back with disappointment. You've done it all. So. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to ring crew, obviously it coincides with referee duties, like you said, mm-hmm. Early on especially. So when it comes to ring crew, for fans that don't really know what that entails, kind of walk us through briefly a day of ring crew, what it takes, how long it takes, and what goes into it.
Basically, the ring crew, we show up early. It depends on the venue, depends on the time, what time the show is at. If it's a regular, let's say 7 p.m. show, we're usually there by, depending, 10, 11 a.m. And again, depending on the venue, if it's a house show, we'll have some help from locals who help set up the ring with us. And we take care of that and we set it all up. And again, depending, it'll take an hour, a little bit, maybe 2 hours at the most. And that's taking it easy. Then right before we open the doors, we do a once over just to make sure everything's, snug and tight and everything's looks okay and ready to go. And after the show, we tear it down, which is always quicker than setting it up because, with setting it up, you have to make sure everything is in its right place and everything's tightened properly and that sort of thing. But after the show, if it takes an hour, you're taking your time. I mean, you can get that thing out of there in the truck and gone.
Awesome. Now, when it comes to the Titan Towers, a referee may not be in the Titan Towers often, but just behind the scenes stuff or company stuff, any experiences in any of the locations of the Titan Towers over the years?
No, the only place I got really it was the warehouse. Every once in a while, I got to go to the warehouse because of, load something in the ring truck or something that needed to be for TV. Other than that, I really didn't have opportunities to go to Titan Towers because living in Canada, they never sent me down there. They did everything via correspondence. If I needed some paperwork signed, they'd send it to my house and then I'd send it back. This was before you did electronic signing on emails and stuff like that. So everything got couriered.
Right.
So I really didn't get there. I mean, I got to visit just to see it, and that's about it.
And have you sustained any injuries or any major injuries over the years?
Yeah, I got banged up a little bit. I famously knocked myself out at WrestleMania 4 during the Intercontinental title match with Honky Tonk Man and Brutus Beefcake, where Jimmy Hart waffled me from behind with the megaphone. And I went to face plant to take the bump. And I put my hands on to brace myself for the bump, but they shot out and my chin hit the sweet spot. And that was it. Lights out. Don't remember a darn thing.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I almost tore my thumb off. I don't know if you can see it's kind of like,
oh yeah,
it's not like the other one. That's for sure. Yeah. Dumb. I did it to myself. I went to slide out of the ring. I was being chased by, I think it was Umaga. I'm running away from him. So I slide out the bottom rope. My thumb catches the ring apron, the rope on the ring apron, and it almost parallel with my wrist. And it hurt, but it was weird because what scared me more was seeing it as opposed to the actual pain of it.
Right.
But I tore everything. I dislocated, tore it, and required surgery to fix all that. I'm trying to think. Really, other than that, I've been very fractured my sternum one time.
Wow.
Yeah, in a match with Rey Mysterio and JBL, where JBL went to the corner to attempt to take off the corner pad. I catch him and I go to fix it back on, and JBL shoots Ray into that corner, and hits me from behind. And when you take a bump like that, you're supposed to leave a little space so you can absorb it a little bit. And I didn't. I was right up against it, and I didn't realize that Ray was going to come in that fast. And as soon as he hit, when all the air leaves your body and doesn't want to come back.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I felt. And I crumbled to the ground, and I'm trying to catch my breath. And Stewie, the cameraman, Stewie's like, "Jimmy, are you okay?" And I'm like, "I can't breathe." And now he's getting on his headset saying, "Guys, I think Jimmy's hurt here." And I'm saying, "Shut up. Don't say nothing." That's of the mentality like an idiot. I'm saying to myself, don't say anything to anybody.
Yeah.
So I continued and finished the match. And I was breathing fine, but I could tell something was up, with it
it was sore. And when I flew home, I was like, oh boy, that's sore. But again, I didn't tell anybody anything because they kept asking, are you okay? And I'm saying, yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. Just a little sore. I'll be fine. And it was not till a little while later, I had an x-ray done for something else. And the guy doing the x-ray says, when did you fracture your sternum? I said, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, you can see the line where it was fractured.
Wow.
I said, oh, I think that was a little while back. And that's when it clicked in, because that's the only time it could have happened.
Yeah.
The only impact that I had there.
Man. Well, people take, they think it's all fun and games, but I mean, it could take, like you said, a tiny thing. You get stuck on the ring apron. You hit the ropes wrong. I mean, that ring is unforgiving. All it takes is one little misslip, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, like I've seen injuries where someone would just jumping down off the apron to the floor. One wrong step and you blow out a knee, an ankle, something like that. It's that simple, and it's amazing the risk these guys take, and it's a testament to them that they are not. This is I don't know if this is going to sound bad, that they don't get injured as often as you might expect.
Sure. Well, you brought up Stewie, the cameraman. The cameramen have been there for so long. They're still there to this day. Stu, Rico, Rambo, Marty Miller at one point, who's now producer,
Yeah, he's in the truck. Marty's in the truck.
Exactly. So these guys have been with the company for, probably 30 years or close to it. So when it comes to the camaraderie with guys like that, any memories of the cameramen specifically over the years?
We always got along great with the cameraman because, we had to work with them. Not only as far as setup goes, but as in the ring. There was always a camaraderie with amongst them. They used to love having fun during the show. They made everything fun. I mean, they're long days. TV days are long days.
Yeah.
And they made it as fun as possible. Marty Miller was a character, that's for sure. I guess he was the head instigator when it came to stirring the pot, especially with Chimel. They loved having fun with Chimel. I mean, there's the infamous incident where Derek Castleman, the merchandise guy, had the T-shirt gun.
Oh, yeah.
Where he'd shoot the T-shirts into the crowd, and
Tony was not thrilled about that.
No, he wasn't thrilled about that. He started dropping F-bombs everywhere, but Marty made sure he was filming the whole thing. You know what I mean? But that said, those guys are the best, hands down. I mean, shooting pro wrestling is different from shooting any other sports or entertainment in the world. And those guys do it better than anybody. I would put them up against any crew. These guys are fantastic.
It can easily be taken for granted because it's just, an everyday thing, but you really think about it and it's like, man, it's like a seamless job for them because they are so professional.
Yeah.
And to do that day in and day out for 30 years is just amazing.
Stewie is the best at walking backwards with that camera.
Yep. Now, the Ultimate Warrior once mentioned before his passing during his Hall of Fame speech that he'd love to see, the Warrior Award be called the Jimmy Miranda Award. And, they went on to create the Warrior Award and they recognized a few people behind the scenes, but not very many. So that never really happened where we're recognizing the behind the scenes people as much, if they were to kind of implement that, who do you think deserves it the most, for say the next inductee as far as a behind the scenes person over the years?
Yeah, the behind the scenes people that don't get recognized. There's so many of them. I mean, you mentioned Jimmy Miranda. At the time, he was the one who took care of all the merchandise. He logged all the miles that everybody else did. He worked his butt off. People don't realize how hard he worked. People who didn't see him, but he, God bless him too. He's not with us anymore, but God bless him too as well. He loved this. But as far as who you
man, who could, guys like Mark Yaton. Mark Yaton was so integral in not only just ringing the bell, he kept time for us. He did he wore many hats behind the scenes in production. I don't know. I definitely believe he needs to be in there.
Mark's another one who's refereed. He's ring crew, of course, and he's done the music sometimes.
Yeah, he's done everything, pretty much everything. I mean, I rag on him all the time. Tony Chimel needs to be in there too. I'm trying to think. Is Fink in there?
He is.
He is. So good. Glad we got him in there. I think obviously referees, I think, need to be recognized more, not just because I was one. And I'm not talking for myself personally. I'm talking, overall. I think referees need to be in there. When you look at people behind the scenes, the things that don't get done without them. I will point to somebody like Steve Taylor, who was my boss in as far as production goes on the ring crew. His contributions don't get overlooked completely, which isn't fair. Again, you talked about the cameramen.
Yeah.
They belong in there as well. I mean, there's so many. The list goes on and on. There's so many behind the scenes people that don't get it. Richie Posner, who was our magic man back in the day.
Oh yes, the props.
Yeah, the seamstresses. How come? Anyway,
it would be nice if we could see that once a year. Like the Warrior wanted.
Yeah.
And just recognize somebody that's been there just as long and done so much work, just maybe not on camera.
Right.
So you mentioned Tim White at one point. Tim White and the Friendly Tap. Tim was the cornerstone for a long time with the Federation, whether it be on screen with, refereeing or, of course, Andre's right-hand man. And he's just done a lot for the company. And then in his later years, bringing talent to different venues for autograph signings and whatever it may be. Unfortunately, we lost Tim. And, he was such an important part, I believe, of the company. What are your personal memories of Tim over the years? Maybe your first experience meeting Tim, and did you ever get to experience his old bar, the Friendly Tap?
I'll go backwards. Yes, I got to experience the Friendly Tap. It was wonderful. Tim was special. Tim always made you feel welcomed. He father figure is the wrong term, but he was like that older friend or older buddy that always looked after everybody. He took care of everybody. Yes, he took care of Andre. People know that he traveled with Andre, but he took care of everybody. He made sure everybody was cool. Later on, when he was in charge of, as an agent, basically, he looked after guys. See, entrusting someone to escort talent to all these different appearances and that sort of thing, it's not easy. It's not an easy task. You have to have a lot of patience. Timmy had a lot of patience. He was also someone you can go to for advice anytime. He would sit down and he would give you his time for whatever you needed. And I was fortunate enough to be under that learning tree because I would go to him a lot if I had referee questions, like about specifically refereeing. And also I would go to him etiquette questions, backstage etiquette. Okay, how do I handle this situation without getting someone hot? You know what I mean? What do I do next time something like this happens? He was the kind of guy you can go to for anything. Yeah.
And we need more people like that are there to not only to lend a hand, but are willingly there to lend a hand.
Mm-hmm.
Are there to just help everybody out. And it gives you a sense of comfort, and just knowing that you're always going to have that person to lean on.
Absolutely.
Tim was that for so many people. So it was fantastic to see him as the first referee inducted into the Hall of Fame. And, that was a special moment. It was great to see his brothers there.
Yeah.
If you were to see another referee go into the Hall of Fame, excluding yourself, who would it be? If you could pick one, who would the next referee be?
Ooh. Does it have to be WWE?
I guess not. I mean, they recognize all different promotions.
Okay, I'll do two. If it's not WWE, I'd love to see Tommy Young go in. Tommy Young is the first referee that I noticed and said to myself, wow, this guy's good.
Yeah.
If it's WWE, it would either have to be, wow. Again, I'm thinking, how about 1A and 1B, both Earl and Dave at the same time?
There you go.
I think that would be nice.
And Dave Hebner, not only was he a referee, he had some backstage roles as well, and acted as agent for a while. Sometimes he'd be the guy who would pay the boys or pay the extras,
Yeah. Get your draw from Dave.
Yeah. What are your personal memories of the Hebners?
Personal memory? Oh, man. I remember the first time I met Earl was that night at Saturday Night's Main Event, but it was after it happened on television because we didn't know it was happening. Dave was another one that I went to a lot for advice. Dave was so calm about everything. I don't think I've ever seen Dave riled up about anything.
Yeah.
And Earl was a little more exuberant, let's put it that way. But meeting him that first night, while they were taking him away to get looked at because he got his shoulder separated, or something, whatever happened when Hulk threw him over the top rope and he overshot everybody. And nobody was able to catch him. But he once he got back again, he was part of that crew. Like I said last time we spoke, I mean, we had a good crew where everybody, got along well.
Yeah.
And Earl was the guy. We didn't have a problem. He was the head official when Dave moved into the agent's role, and kind of Earl took over that spot, but Dave was there before him. But Dave was like that father figure, that we had. Earl was more like our leader, if that makes sense, kind of like in different ways, but they were both, they were cool to be around because we had a good crew. Yeah. We had a good crew of guys.
And even with their parting from the WWE, it's been long enough. Hopefully we'll see them recognized one day because they've done so much for the business,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody remembers Earl. Everybody remembers Dave.
Right. The new generation, part one of our interview, we touched on it briefly. It was that 1995, 96 era, a little bit of 94. Memories from the new generation. What was your take on it, seeing all of those characters come in? Mantar, Waylon Mercy, the Goon, all those different gimmicks that maybe fans weren't used to.
I thought it was interesting, to say the least. I didn't know how well they would be received by the fans. Obviously, it was geared towards that PG audience, which I understood at the time. But at the same time, I was like, it didn't present itself like you want to suspend that disbelief. It's kind of hard to do when somebody's, son of a plumber. Well, that's not, Dusty's a different story, but you know what I mean? Like Duke the Dumpster Drosy and Waylon Mercy and all these larger than life characters that kind of, I don't know, set the tone for other characters that came later that were just like, how far can we take this?
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I enjoyed it for what it was. I figured, okay, let's just have fun with it. But at the same time, it's not my company.
Sure.
This is the direction the boss wants to take. So that's fine. Let him do it.
And as being a referee, the role of a referee, you're the third man in the match. Mm-hmm. So how important is the role of a referee in the match?
The referee doesn't get enough credit for how important they are because the referee is the one who helps communicate, helps be that conduit between the talent, and you're the one there that helps the talent tell their story.
Yeah.
So you have to be invisible until you need to be seen. you're there. It's kind of like a background actor who is essential to the scene, but doesn't get any credit. And we don't want the credit. I don't want credit.
Sure.
You know what I mean? As a referee, I don't want to be the one that stands out and one of the fans will go, "Oh, that referee did a great job." No, I don't want that. If you don't notice me, if the match goes on smoothly and you are interested in the match and you're saying, "Wow, that match was great," then I did my job.
Exactly.
Biggest example I give, and people still to this day don't understand it, is WrestleMania 24, which is the biggest match of my career. When I got to the back, first person I ran into was Ricky Steamboat. And he mentioned to me that the bump I took in the match was big boot from The Undertaker. And he said, the boot looked good. You took it like a champ. Good job. I said, thank you. I said, how was the rest of the match? And he says, well, I'm sorry, but I really didn't notice you because I was so interested in the story that they were telling. I didn't really notice you during the match. I said, thank you, Ricky. That's the best compliment you can ever give me. And when I say that to people, they look at me like I'm daft. Like, what the hell? They didn't notice you? I said, yeah, I'm not supposed to be noticed. That's my job.
Yeah.
You know, you're not supposed to see me until the moment, whatever it is, whether it's the finish, counting 3, if there's one spot in the match where you're involved. Other than that, you know.
And coming out of the ratings slump of the new generation, all of a sudden, Stone Cold is born, lost at 316, takes us right into the Attitude Era boom. And that's exactly what it was. You had the 80s boom, but you had the Attitude Era boom.
Yes.
Being there and experiencing that as it happened, I don't know if anybody expected it to become what it was. You know, to walk us through that process and what it felt like being there.
You're right. I don't think anybody expected it. I mean, like, you know, King of the Ring, the infamous 316 promo by Steve Austin. Nobody knew he had that in him. I don't think they did anyways. And once they heard it, everybody said, oh, wow, maybe we do have something here. It was amazing because at that time during the promo, I forget who the other referee is, but we were helping Jake Roberts out of the ring, you know, walking him back. And we were walking right by where Michael Hayes was conducting the interview with Stone Cold. And when he hit that line, Austin 316 says, I just whipped your ass. Jake Roberts, who was selling the whole time, he looked back and he turned and he went, and he had this smile on his face. And it was like, almost like he knew. I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
But it's like he knew. And of all people, you know, one of the best talkers ever, one of the most cerebral people on the microphone, Jake Roberts. I think at that time, looking back on it, he realized, oh boy, we got something here.
Right.
You know, so, and then the rest, everybody followed suit. Everybody said, okay, here we go. We can be a little more liberal. I think this is the right time for it. I don't think people want that PG anymore, that PG era anymore. And, you know, some of it may have gone a little overboard, but, you know, it was working, and you got to do what works, right?
Right. And you've traveled the world. You've been everywhere with the World Wrestling Federation. And that's one of the, I guess one of the perks of being with the company is you get to see all these different places around the world. Maybe you don't get to spend as much time there as you'd like to because you're focusing on the show. But why don't you talk about the international tours specifically? Any memories or road stories when it comes to, or travel stories when it comes to the international shows?
Oh, yeah. I mean, those were fun. They were a little bit grueling at times. You're right. We never got, unlike today, because the schedule is a little different today. We never got to really spend much time wherever we were. So, you know, you got to see the hotel, the airport, the venue. And if you got lucky, you got to go out and just quickly cruise around whatever city you happen to be in. But back then, usually when we went overseas, it was like a 2-week tour. And it was like a different city almost every night with the occasional double shot in one city Like we sometimes might be like 2 nights in Dublin or something like that. But those were fun because the guys would entertain themselves. We would keep ourselves entertained, because on those international tours, everybody would be on the buses, be transported between wherever we needed to go. And of course, they split them up back then, heels on one bus, baby faces on the other. As referees and ring crew, we got to choose which bus we wanted to ride on. It didn't matter, I guess. We weren't heels or baby faces, so it didn't matter. But we would, again, entertain ourselves. And there was little things that they do to break up the monotony of these travels. Like people have heard about the infamous wrestler's court.
Oh, yes.
Which people have a misunderstanding of what that was all about. They thought it was hazing. It wasn't hazing. It was a way of entertaining everybody. You take the smallest little infraction that somebody had, and they'd say, "Oh, well, I'm taking you to wrestler's court," and then all of a sudden, here we go. We're in wrestler's court. The Undertaker's the judge, and JPL's the prosecuting attorney, and then it becomes into it's like night court, basically, is what it is. But those were fun. I'm trying to think of what overseas was like. Oh, I remember, speaking of 2 nights in one city, we were 2 nights in Dublin, and we figured, okay, we're going to go out and have a good time at the hotel bar. We weren't going to go out anywhere. We're going to stay at the hotel bar because you can only get into so much trouble there, right?
Uh-oh.
And, it turned into a very late night, and then started playing these crazy games. Like Fit Finley had this game he called the spoon game, where he'd get 2 guys, they'd be on their hands and knees, and he'd have this wooden spoon. It's a long wooden spoon, about, I don't know, yay long. I don't know. And the whole thing, it was a setup for somebody. They would set somebody up. Was, okay, you're on your hands and knees. The other guy would have the spoon in his mouth. The other guy would duck his head down where he couldn't see, and the other guy would try to hit him on the top of his head with the spoon in his mouth until somebody gives up.
Gotcha.
Right? Try to picture this now. Now, what Fit would do is he'd pick one guy who would be the target, and when they put their head down where they couldn't see, he'd have that shillelagh, and he'd give them a whack with the shillelagh on the top of the head, and they'd be like, what the hell? So he'd wonder why this guy can hit so hard with the spoon, with this small little wooden spoon, while he couldn't generate enough to get him to flinch. It was, you have to picture this thing because you couldn't even make this stuff up. And then later on, it turned into the bar was closing. But the hotel said, they moved us out into the lobby, and they kind of provided some beverages there for us just to keep us occupied. And we played this game. They called it the card game, where you'd cut the cards and low man loses. So whoever lost had to get chopped by the guy he cut with, like just a chop in the chest.
Oh boy.
And I didn't partake in that game. I stayed out of that one. I didn't want any part of it, but it was now about 5:30 in the morning. We're still in the lobby. And the elevator doors open, and here comes Big Show, and I forgot who was escorting him. But anyways, he was going to a television station to do a hit for the show, to advertise the show coming up that day. And right before that, Fit, said to me, "You haven't cut the cards once tonight. You have to cut the cards once, and it's me and you." And I went, okay, whatever. Fit's Fit. So I cut the cards. Of course, I lose. So Fit was supposed to chop me, but at that time, Big Show came out of the elevator. He says, "Show, come here. He says, no. What's up?" He goes, he says, "Chop Korderas." He says, "What?" He says, "Well, we cut the cards. He lost. I'm supposed to chop him. I'm passing it over to you." Show goes, "Okay." And I'm going, "What the hell?" So he says, I wear this crucifix around my neck, right? He says, "Okay, you might want to move that to the back because you don't want it embedded in your chest." And I went, oh my goodness. And he hit me so hard that if it wasn't for the furniture, I would have been outside. I mean, I landed on this couch. It was like, and I had this ginormous handprint across my chest for about a week. It was incredible. I've never felt anything like that.
So was Fit more of a prankster, an instigator backstage? Okay.
Yeah, he was again one of those guys that eased the tension, because those trips can get grueling, but Fit would figure out ways to ease that tension. That's for sure.
Sure. Now, being a Canadian, any memories of Stu Hart and Stampede Wrestling, whether it be watching it on television or being there in person?
We did get Stampede Wrestling here, so I watched it when I could. Obviously the Hart family was big there. Leo Burke was big there. Bad News Allen, who was Bad News Brown in WWF at the time, he was there as well. A young honky tonk man before he was the honky tonk man, Wayne Ferris. A lot of talent came out of there, but one of the things that Stu liked, he liked to test big guys. And I remember one time in particular where we were in Calgary for a house show, and Stu was at the show. And Tugboat Fred Ottman. I don't know if he remembers it. He probably does remember this, but maybe I'm remembering it differently. I hope not, but this is what I remember seeing.
Yeah.
They said, hey, Tugboat, have you met Stu? He says, no, I've never met Stu. He says, go over and introduce yourself. Because they knew that Stu like to have fun with bigger guys. So he walked over and says, hello, Mr. Hart, how are you? I want to introduce myself. My name is Fred. It's a pleasure to meet you. Stu, everybody does a Stu voice. Mine's not that good, but you're a big guy there, Tiger. Have you ever had anybody do this? And he'd grab him by the thumb and the wrist, and he had him on his knees in like 3 seconds, like in pain. And everybody in the locker room's laughing because they set him up. Because they knew he was going to do it. And I think Stu expects it now, and he thinks he wants people to see him do it, so he does it. But I got the pleasure of meeting Stu again, not hang out with Stu, so I didn't get to know him that well, but he was always pleasant with me.
When it comes to the WWF,
thank goodness.
Yes, you didn't end up down on the ground. Yeah,
yes.
When it comes to the WWF, kind of transitioning into WWE, 2002, Get the F Out campaign. Mm-hmm. The World Wildlife Federation or Foundation kind of took that role over, and they lost the name. Take us through that little snippet in the road, and initially what you thought was going to come out of that. Was that going to be a big issue, or was it an easy transition?
I didn't think it was that big an issue. The brilliance of the Get the F Out campaign, I think, helped, but it also it was WWF for how many years? And then all of a sudden, the World Wildlife Foundation gets upset and doesn't like the fact that there's another WWF in town. So that shows that now people are noticing. I think that once it started getting to that level where, we have a gimmick infringement, you're taking our name, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think everybody liked the idea of the Get the F Out campaign. I think that helped. I think it was actually beneficial because it gave them some publicity in circles that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten.
Sure. And rewinding just a year prior to that, WWF purchased WCW, an acquisition that I don't know if anybody saw that coming. I mean, it's just seems like a larger than life thing. Mm-hmm. So for that to happen, what was your initial reaction when you heard the news, number one? And number two, how do you think that it transpired? How do you think it came off as far as the invasion and everything that followed?
When it first happened, it kind of it caught everybody a little bit off guard, and then seeing Shane on that final Nitro, made everybody go, oh, But for us, from a referee standpoint, for most of us, a lot of us were wondering what happens next. Because obviously some referees were going to come over. What does that mean for the crew here? We felt comfortable, the ones that were on the ring crew as well, because we wore several hats. And I don't know, I can't speak for Earl because he never spoke to us about how he felt about others coming over and stuff like that. And as far as talent goes, a lot of talent were like, okay, there's going to be an influx of talent coming in here. What happens now? Is there room for everybody? And obviously, they figured some people were not going to be here anymore. And then fast forward and adding the ECW roster as well. Yeah, that took up a lot of space. So that was the mindset. Where is everybody going to fit? There's really, you have to be honest, there's not enough room for everybody. So,
and if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have seen fellow referee Charles Robinson in the World Wrestling Entertainment. So,
yes.
What are your memories of Little Nate? And over the years, any dealings with him?
Charles and I became fast friends. I mean, he came over, and I know there was. I'm not going to name names, but some people were a little taken aback by the WCW refs joining the crew. I never felt anything. I always thought, you know what? Hey, that's the way life is. I'm not going to get all bent out of shape out of it. But Charles was a guy that was so good natured, and again, another guy, we hit it off right away. And we became buddies, and we're still buddies to this day. Every once in a while, we message each other and rib each other, with little messages back and forth. Charles is a guy who genuinely loves what he's doing, still loves what he's doing, which is amazing and good for him. And we'll always be friends. That's just, he's one of those guys. When you talk about lifelong friends, Charles is one of them.
You said it was an overload of talent. Once WCW got involved, ECW, there's just so much talent involved. Was there enough meat on the bone in the way of, did they do more house shows now that they had more talent, or were they just saturating the few shows that they did have?
Well, they got to the point where they were running 2 house shows. There were 2 house show crews, especially when they did the brand split. The brand split did help in that regard, because now you have brand specific talent, not like today where they kind of bounce back and forth, but at the same time, they don't run house shows like they did back in the day. So it doesn't really matter as much, but having two touring house shows did definitely help. But it wasn't enough to get everybody on the show. You know what I mean? There was a lot of talent that had to sit home, unfortunately.
Yeah. And as an employee, there are 2 different sides to it. It started off as a mom and pop company, and then of course went public and was just, larger than life. As an employee, how did that feel? Did you feel that difference backstage or inside the company, or did it kind of go unnoticed?
For us, we didn't really feel it. It was almost like business as usual. Nothing really changed pay scale wise for the referees. Nothing changed pay scale wise with being on production, which the ring crew fell under the production side. So from that aspect, nothing really changed for us. It was more at the corporate level that it all changed.
And nowadays you have the relationships with WWE and TNA kind of working together, which I think is good for business, gives more exposure, of course. And same with AAA, but rewinding back into the 90s, they kind of had on a smaller scale, a similar relationship with Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And of course the USWA at one point. They went as far as to have, Smoky Mountain tag team title matches on WWF pay-per-view. Right. So something like that, rewinding then, that was probably about 1993. Any memories of USWA, Smoky Mountain, any of their talent getting involved?
Just that they were there, and it was good to meet new talent. Like, you know what I mean? And having a different flavor on the television show. It helps not making your product stale and letting people know that there's other talent. It's beneficial to them too. Putting them on TV on a platform like that helps out the other promotions that don't otherwise have a platform. So, Smoky Mountain obviously has their being territorial, a territory basically, and others. I think it helped them, gain some traction.
And what's the hardest part of being a referee?
The hardest part of being a referee is, wow. I think the hardest part of being a referee is, again, trying your best to not be a distraction. Because sometimes tendencies, even for seasoned vets, the tendencies are to overreact, have motions that are a little bit over the top. Like I said before, you want to be invisible until you need to be visible. Sometimes there's that tendency to just to get in the way. You got to stay out of the way. Know your positioning. Positioning is very vital for a referee, especially on television. You have to work that horseshoe and try not to block that hard camera shot as much as possible. There's going to be times where you're going to have to cross in front, but you got to try and minimize those as best you can. And when you do it as fast, but not be a distraction. That's the biggest challenge of being a referee.
We talked about some of the behind the scenes guys, maybe moving forward, going in the Hall of Fame. Tim White got his spotlight not long ago. Say you're chosen. You go into the Hall of Fame, referee. Who do you choose to induct you?
Ooh, that's a good question. You know who I would love to get? I would love to get Adam Copeland, since he was the one who wrote the foreword for my book. I think that would be a great choice.
Awesome. And let's talk about your book.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a great book. It's you've had it out for years now, and the people are always talking about that book specifically. I always see it online, in conversation. I've read your book. It's a great piece, and it really, obviously, a lot of work goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
You spill everything you have into it. Tell us a little bit about your book, why you decided to write one, and where fans can purchase one now if they still want to grab one.
Well, the book was not my idea, believe it or not. It was my wife. She was the one who was, she kept hearing me talk about certain things, telling stories about life on the road, especially when I got together with, friends who are wrestling fans and stuff like that. So we come home one day and she says, you should write a book. That all those are stories that you got to put them in a book. Your story, put it in a book, write a book. She kept saying it. It was just repetitive the whole time. And I'm like, I don't know who'd be interested to read my story. I don't know who would be interested. And so the stories I would tell, when we'd come home, I didn't realize it, but on the computer, on our home computer, she started a file and she started making bullet points of stories that I would tell people, and she'd make bullet points. And then one day she says, here's a bunch of stories, start writing.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't know. And she said, once you get started, it gets easier. And I'm like, I don't know how easy it is. Now, I don't want to say it got easier as I got started, but at least it started flowing better. And then I got into the groove, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to dedicate myself to this. I'm going to put it in. I'm going to do it and see if there's interest out there, and shop it around to ECW Press, and they were on board, and that was great. And then it's still available today. Easiest place to get it is probably on Amazon. Or if you find me at any WrestleCons, I'll have a bunch with me, and you can purchase one there, and I'll sign it even for you.
That's a great story, and all you needed was that little push.
Yep.
Your wife, and you've got a great, a great piece of your personal history to show the world.
Yeah, she's on me now. She's saying, "Isn't it time for part 2?" And I said, "I don't know." And then, well, guess what she started doing already again?
Who knows? That's great. Now, all the years you were with the company, was there somebody that you thought, oh, this guy's going to be a star, or this girl's going to be a star, and they never went on to be a star, and it kind of surprised you?
Ooh, I'm trying to think back. Trying to get those brain cells firing up.
Yeah.
Man, see, pardon the silence. Again, I'm trying to think here because I'm going back and I'm saying, why didn't this guy click? Somebody that said, why didn't this guy click?
Or maybe they did become a star, but then they kind of fizzled out a little earlier than you expected.
You know who I was expecting to be a bigger star than they actually were, and even though he was a big name, was Test Andrew. I thought he was going to be a bigger name. I mean, he had the look, he had the size, he was good in the ring, he was good on the mic. I thought there were bigger things in store for him. And sadly, he's not with us, but he ticked all the Vince boxes. You know what I mean? So, I thought, don't get me wrong, he had prominent roles.
Sure.
I just thought, somewhere down the line that he was going to be that guy.
If I remember correctly, initially, he was the bodyguard of Motley Crue.
I think you're right.
I think Motley Crue performed on Raw, and that's how Test was discovered. He was their bodyguard. And
Again, probably wouldn't have got discovered if it wasn't for the Canadian influence with The Office,
Sure. And then I guess on the flip side of that question, who hasn't become, or I should say, who has become a star that you were maybe a little surprised, like, oh, wow, they really went a little further than I thought they would have?
This is going to sound weird, and it's because we're buddies, is Randy Orton. Only because Randy was early on at a young age was his own worst enemy. And I thought, that's just gonna hold him back. That's going to be a detriment to him. But I watch him today, and to me, I think it's going to sound biased, and maybe it is, but again, this is my honest opinion. Right now, he is the most complete wrestler out there today. And people say, what do you mean most complete? I say he does everything well. It's not just he's great at this, he's great at that, he's great at this, he's great at everything. But he's because, like I said, because early on in his career, I thought he was going to be his own worst enemy and get in his own way with a little bit of an attitude, a little bit of a disciplinary issues that he had to deal with. But man, again, with the maturity that comes later on.
Yeah. After that learning curve, I mean, he's got the look, he's got the presence, he's got the mic skills. He cuts one hell of a promo. He's great in the ring, and whether it's singles or part of a group, I mean, he's done it all well, and he's so consistent.
Yes.
And he's just, injury, whatever gets in the way, he always comes back full force. And he's somebody that, is definitely on a Hall of Fame ballot.
Oh, definitely. And he can also make a lot of Mount Rushmores, but that's why when we talked earlier about my Mount Rushmore, he would definitely be on it if he wasn't active. Because he's still active, I'm not putting him on there.
Sure. When it comes to Hall of Fame, are there any stars, maybe from the past, rewinding a ways away, that aren't in the Hall of Fame that you think definitely should have been in there by now?
Ooh, see, I don't want to make mistakes here because there are a lot of people that are probably in there that I didn't realize were in there. But I don't understand why Axe and Smash are not in there. Those two for sure. trying to think who is not in the Hall of Fame. That's hard. Again, I'm thinking a lot here, and it's not helping.
Well, a couple that come to mind for me have always been Rick Martel.
Oh, he's not in?
No.
See, there's a name that you would automatically think is in.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Another one is Tony Gurria.
Tony. Well, his tag team partner, yes, from early on. How is he not in the Hall of Fame? No, my goodness. Is Jack Lanza in?
Yes, the Blackjacks are in.
The Blackjacks. He's in as part of the Blackjacks. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So. I'm trying to think. No one's coming to mind right now as far as not being in.
Well, that's okay. I mean, we touched on referees going into the Hall of Fame, and maybe that'll be the next move, and then from there, any personal memories of Jimmy Miranda?
Yeah, Jimmy. I talked earlier about playing cards. He was one of the first people I used to play cards with, and Jimmy, again, for some, he always had a smile on his face, always had fun. He was the one who actually introduced my old ring crew partner here in Canada, Derek Castleman, to the world of merchandise. He used to help out Jimmy with the merchandise, and then elevated to the spot where he is today. Basically handling all the merchandise for WWE, which is cool. But Jimmy and I hate to sound cliche and sound repetitious, but we got along right from the get-go.
Yeah.
He just had that calming personality and welcoming personality, and we became fast friends.
WWE Hall of Famer, the Big Cat, Ernie Ladd. Any memories with him over the years?
Again, someone I didn't get to interact with a lot. I mean, got to see him every once in a while and just, greet him. Hello, Mr. Ladd. Nice to see you again. That's about it. I didn't really have very much interaction with him, though, outside of that.
2002, WrestleMania 18 returned to the Skydome, Toronto, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
You touched on it briefly earlier. Hogan Rock, iconic on paper. And even if you think it was going to be a big spectacle on paper, I think it went beyond expectations and just turned into just a mega match of icons right there. What was that day like, going into that event and your participation in that event?
Glad to be a part of the second Skydome WrestleMania. Getting to be a part of both of them was amazing. Going into it, it was funny because when Rock and Hogan was getting set to go out, what I did was I kind of snuck out from behind this backstage and went out into the arena, into the tech area, which was out in the arena proper, because it's almost like you felt something special was going to happen, but you didn't know what.
Right.
So I wanted to be out there just to hear and feel it. It's one thing to watch on the monitors in the back, and I don't think you get the full experience there. I want to be out into the arena. So when I snuck out there, and just as they were about to do the introductions, I looked behind me, and a whole bunch of the talent had snuck out there too as well. So I wasn't the only one. There's a lot of people who felt this was going to be special. And then they had that moment, the iconic moment of them just standing in the ring, and the place going, as Pat Patterson would say, the place was going banana.
Yeah.
People don't, it's easy for us to sit here and describe how loud it was in there, but for people who were actually there, they can't emphasize enough how loud that place was. I mean, I mentioned earlier from WrestleMania 6 when Warrior won the title and almost blew the roof off. This was literally the loudest I've ever heard a crowd, even to this day. And they did absolutely nothing. Yeah. They just stood across from the ring from each other. And when people saw that, and the guys looked at each other and just, it was almost like light bulbs were going off in their head. They're going, see, this is what it's all about.
It's not about the moves. It's about moments. It's about characters, about getting invested in people. And the sound, I'm serious. I'm sure there are people that night that were probably leaving the building with their ears buzzing.
Yeah.
It was so loud. And once that moment happened and once the match finished, I think everybody realized they witnessed a moment.
Yeah. And Canadian fans have such a deep respect for professional wrestling and for the past. Did you expect that it was going to be such a pro Hulk Hogan crowd?
I didn't think it was going to be that much of a of a swing because obviously Hogan was the heel, the NWO Hogan. I figured he'd get some cheers, but that was what I guess had made Jerry Lawler coin the phrase of calling Toronto Bizarro World. You know what I mean? I didn't expect it to be that crazy. I mean, they flipped the switch and they called an audible in the ring. They did it masterfully.
You touched base on Jack Lanza a little bit earlier in our part 1 interview. When it came to road agents, you had Jim Myers, George Animal Steel.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you had Jack Lanza. You had Tony Gurria, Dave Hebner, Rene Goulet.
Yes.
And of course, the Chief J Strongbow.
Mm-hmm.
What were these guys like as agents? Now, they're no longer wrestling. Were they easy to deal with? Were some of them serious? Kind of some memories of them.
Well, you had kind of a mix. I mean, they were very, excuse me. It's almost like today the guys it feels like guys are a little bit overproduced. These guys would give advice and you would run things by them and they would tell you what they think. And one of the fun things is, at house shows especially, was where you try different things to see what works. And if it works, then you do it on TV. If it doesn't work, then guess what? You're not going to do it on TV.
Sure.
But the fun part was they were very much, if you had a suggestion and they didn't like it, they would tell you, look, maybe you should think about trying it this way. And you can discuss it with them. I mean, they wouldn't force the idea down your throat, but they would say, you know what? Hey, I don't see it that way. Do you want to try it? Go ahead and try it. And if it works, then I'm wrong. They were easy to work with. They were very easy to work with, especially at that time where there were so many veterans in the locker room. But they didn't, I don't want to say overstep. Overstep is the wrong word. They didn't step on people's toes. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
They gave you enough freedom to try things on your own, but at the same time, they would tell you, listen, from my experience, this is what works. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And going a little bit into the rules of a match, as a referee or one of the competitors, you have the different rules, whether it be a 5 count if they got the guy in the corner, or of course 3 count for the pin, 10 count outside of the ring. How did those, do you know the history of those rules? How did they come about? Were they always implemented, your whole time there? Were some of them added after the fact? And over the years, were there some rules that you kind of thought were just kind of ridiculous or didn't really work at times?
The rules, they evolved a little bit. Like from the time I started, the 10 count outside the ring was always there. It was always implemented. The 5 count to break on the ropes or in the corner was always implemented. And the 5 count on tags, where you had a 5 count for your partner to switch out and stuff like that. The thing that changed over the years was, like when I first started, the punching, the closed fist. I don't know why they keep calling it closed fist. A fist is a fist. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't know. I guess the term is closed fist. They were deemed illegal, but you could throw about, several of them and just warn them constantly that, it's illegal. So that part I never understood.
Yeah.
I just did it because I was told to do it.
Right.
And then that went away. And then they were saying, okay, yeah, don't worry about the punches. The punches are fine. That's the main one. And I know when Bill Watts came in, he was like adamant about the over-the-top rope rule.
That was one where if, automatic disqualification if you throw somebody over the top. Tag matches is only a 2 save rule. You're only allowed to save twice. After that, it's a DQ. And I'm like,
yeah.
Now we're supposed to keep track of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the interference as a kid watching, the one that really got me was, if Mr. Fuji would interfere and throw the salt and the ref is distracted, the ref turns around and now there's a huge cloud of salt or smoke in the ring and you don't notice that. It's just like, oh, okay, that's fine. Back to the match. I thought, that was kind of funny. That always.
Yeah. There's some things that didn't make sense that you had to just do. That's one of them. I mean, I guess you can kind of play it off like, well, we don't really know who threw the smoke or the salt, but we didn't see it,
And we talked about how you've been, part of just about every era. What was your favorite era to be a part of?
Ooh. I mean, like the Attitude Era gets glorified a lot. I mean, that was a fun time because it's shifted the direction of the business. I liked the era that was pretty much between the 2002 to 2007, 2008 era.
Okay.
I thought there was a really, really good mix of talent, up and down the card that were good. And again, a good crew of talent, a good crew of referees, a good crew of personnel. I thought for me, that was, I have to admit, that was my favorite time.
Any personal memories of the King of Hearts, Owen Hart?
Oh, plenty. One of the things about Owen is, obviously famous for ribbing. When you got ribbed by Owen, it was almost like a badge of honor. Because none of his ribs were harmful. They weren't malicious. They were all in fun. They made you laugh. It was like if you got, he would rib you and you'd go, yeah, okay, he got me. You'd be smiling afterwards as opposed to going, oh, yeah, I'm going to get that,
Right. How about referee Joey Morella? Unfortunately, we lost him in 1994, the son of Gorilla Monsoon. And a big part of the World Wrestling Federation for those early years. He was in some prominent matches, of course, WrestleMania 3 with Hogan and Andre. What was Joey like backstage to be around?
Joey was like chill. He was very like the way you saw him in the ring, his referee style, because it was he wasn't animated. He wasn't as animated as some referees. You know what I mean? He was very laid back. That was him. That was Joey. Joey was always laid back. Gorilla used to call us the twins because back then I had hair. We had similar hairstyles, so he would call us the twins. And it's sad the circumstances surrounding Joey, but glad to have known him. He actually helped me out a lot, being roughly the same age, of getting me to feel comfortable. If he was a guy that able to talk to me and say, hey, you know what, this is how things work around here, especially for us younger guys.
Right. That
kind of stuff.
When it came to talent relations, there were a couple different transitions over the years. Sometimes you saw Jim Ross in charge of that department, J.J. Dillon, of course, John Laurinaitis, whoever it may be. Who was the easiest to kind of work with over the years in that department?
Hands down, JR. JR was easy to talk to. He was very approachable. He not that anybody else didn't. He cared about the talent. He really was someone who you weren't intimidated by, because sometimes you get intimidated by the office. JR was not intimidating. He was stern, but at the same time, he was fair, always fair. And especially in an era where you couldn't really ask for time off or anything like that. If you needed to take any kind of time off, like, for example, simple thing, when I was getting married, I was hoping to get 2 weeks off for a honeymoon, and I went to him and he was like, very good. Yeah, no problem. 2 weeks, you got it.
That's great.
Whereas probably somebody else would probably say, yeah, we'll give you a week and that's about it.
Yeah.
You know?
He was more personable and understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And knew how to handle talent, especially sometimes, let's be honest. Some guys had egos. He knew how to deal with those egos.
Put him in check if he had to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So when it came to the legends coming back, you'd see them from time to time, still to this day on Monday Night Raw, whether it be a special or a one-off or whatever it may be. Really, the first time that we saw that was 2001, WrestleMania 17, the gimmick battle royal.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of fans were excited for that. It was kind of the first time that we're seeing all the legends come back. They hadn't really done that at that point. What are your memories of kind of seeing a lot of the old guys back together? Was it something because it was such a big event, it wasn't really guys rubbing elbows, you didn't really get that moment, or did you get to see everybody and talk to them?
I wish I could have had more time because it is WrestleMania. It is a big event, and being a part of the production crew, you're running around all day long. And between getting together with the guys in your match that you're working and doing all the other stuff, because, you got this radio on you, and every 5 minutes, it feels like somebody's going, hey, come to the production office. We need this. And you're running around. So I didn't get the opportunity to see everybody like I would have liked to, but I think it's cool moments. Those are cool moments when you bring back some of the legends, even if it's, like you said, a one-off, or if it's a short program, whatever it is. I don't see a problem with it. I know some people say, well, they're taking a spot away from a young and upcoming guy. Look, if it wasn't for these guys, some of these guys wouldn't have that spot. So, You know what? It's okay to give legends their moment. You
talked about Dangerous Danny Davis early on in your career, helping you out with Andre the Giant there.
Mm-hmm.
Years later, he would become a referee for the second time,
Mm-hmm.
in the 1994 timeframe. Any memories of Danny, and what led him to become a referee again that late in his career?
You know what? I don't know what the thought process was. I guess they figured that him turning heel and becoming a wrestler had run his course. So he was always, this isn't meant in a derogatory way, he was always a good hand. Danny was always a good hand, so they always wanted to give him a spot. So they figured, you know what? We can bring him back as a referee. And, he's seen the light and he'll call it down the middle kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it was more of a, we don't want to let him go because, he's been around for so long. So we'll ease him back into the referee role.
And what's the fan experience been like over the years, meeting all the fans through travel or whatever it may be, airports? What's your most memorable fan experience, and maybe your worst fan experience that you wouldn't like to remember if you have one of those?
You know what? For the most part, most fans are very pleasant. They are very, very respectful, and it's very cool. I mean, like I said, as a referee, you try to be invisible. So when you do get noticed, it's humbling. You know what I mean? That people recognize you, especially all these years later, which is amazing to me. I don't know if this is worst fan experience, but it's sometimes they can be over exuberant. When I was first trying to impress my now wife on our first date, for example, I took her to a restaurant to try and impress her. So it was kind of a little bit of an upscale restaurant here in Toronto. It was on the top of one of the corporate towers here. It was around, a 360 view of the city and that kind of thing. And
sure.
While I was sitting there, we were, trying to converse a little bit and have a little bit of a conversation. Now, I didn't notice that behind me there was a group of guys. And apparently they were one of them at least was a wrestling fan, and kind of figured out who I was. And he just came over and he politely said, "Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but are you Jimmy Korderas?" I said, "Yes, I am." He says, I knew it was you. I knew it was you. Do you mind if I ask you a question? I said, sure. But, just so you know, I'm on a date here trying to impress here. He says, oh, no, I won't be long. He slides in and sits beside me.
Oh my gosh.
And he starts firing off all these questions. And I don't want to be rude to the guy because now, I don't want her to think that, I'm not a nice guy. So
Right.
I'm trying to accommodate this guy as best I can. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is going to be it. This is the last date I'm ever going to have. Now, my wife is not a wrestling fan. She never was. And I thought, okay, this for sure is going to cement the deal that this is done. But it kind of made her think, this is kind of cool. I'm like, you thought this was cool? I'm like, geez. And finally, the guy's friend came over and said, all right, come on. You bugged the guy enough. Let's go. He says, okay, I got just one more question. And he sat down again. And then this buddy just grabbed him and dragged him away. It was like, and his buddy apologized for it. And I said, okay, no problem.
Oh my gosh.
I said nicely, do you mind keeping your buddy, over at your table? So, he said, no worries. I got him.
That's great that, your wife is not a wrestling fan, but was so inspirational into getting your book out. I think that's a great thing,
Yeah, she's had my back all these years. It's amazing. We got married in 1999 and, we talk about the sacrifices that we make, going on the road for so many days in a year and so forth. But people don't realize that the sacrifice your family makes and that allow you to go on the road and live your dream job. You know what I mean? And as hard as it was, sometimes the traveling was the hard part. I mean, the actual being there at the building and doing the show and that stuff, you can't replace that. The traveling was the stuff if I could complain about anything all those years, it was the travel. That's it. You know what I mean? Too bad we didn't have transporters like they do in Star Trek, where you can just beam in, Scotty, to whichever town you're working in. Right. That would make it the perfect world. But they're the ones, your family are the ones who make the sacrifices because you miss birthdays, you miss, holidays, certain holidays, and just special moments that you don't get to spend with your family. And without them and their understanding, it doesn't happen.
And speaking of travel, WWE, did they pay for your hotel, your flights, your rental cars?
Okay. If you're at the time, they did for me because I was part of the production crew, which was a separate, like the referee pay was separate from the production pay. If you are just a referee, it's almost, you're like a hired talent. The talent used to have to pay their own rental cars, hotels, and meals. Now they flew you in and out from home. The office did, but you had to pay your own road expenses. When you're on the production crew, because what they would do is they would take care of your hotel, your rental cars, and you'd get a meal allowance. You'd get a per diem. So that was covered.
Okay.
So that's why when people would ask me all those years, like they would say, why are you still doing ring crew? Why are you still doing ring crew? And I would tell these people, because I'm not an idiot. Look, all this stuff's getting taken care of. I don't have to split a car with 4 people to try to cut down on expenses.
Yeah. And did you have a travel buddy? Did you travel alone, or did you tend to have a kind of your own little crew traveling with?
Yeah, it ended up being, of course, Chimel. I always talk about that we were commonly known as Siskel and Ebert, Chimel and I. And it was always the car was always me driving, Chimel passenger seat, and in the back seat for a long time it was Larry Heck, the athletic trainer.
Oh yes,
because he would always be there late as well, and we ended up being buddies. And he was also a golf partner. We loved going golfing when we had the rare day off somewhere, along with guys like JBL and Booker, who were also big into golf. but our car was usually myself, Chimel, Larry, and that fourth seat was a rotating, like I said, before Kyoto got moved to Raw, most of the time he would be in the car with us unless he decided to ride with somebody else. We'd have Hornswoggle in there a lot. Unfortunately, too much sometimes. But that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it. We were pretty much set with that car. Yeah.
Any food spots that you kind of look forward to from town to town? You're like, oh man, I'm going to Philly. I can't wait to stop at this place or wherever it may be.
Man, unfortunately, most of the time it was fast. So you had to pick something fast.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the place in Baltimore. My goodness, it's throwing me off now. Why am I not remembering this? Was it Jimmy Seafood in Baltimore?
Not familiar with Baltimore.
Anyway, unfortunately, because of the nature of our travel, we didn't have much time to pick a place where we had time to sit, relax, and eat. So, for us, it was kind of like Cracker Barrel was a delicacy.
Which is, that's fine.
Scattered, covered, and smothered, or whatever. I don't know.
And then catering, catering in the 90s, maybe when sales were low in the new generation era, compared to catering in the Attitude Era. What are we looking at backstage?
It wasn't a whole big change. It wasn't like it went from chicken and rice to sandwiches or anything like that. They tried to keep catering up to speed, at least. Anyways, they didn't try to skimp on that, which is nice. But I have been backstage recently or visiting friends, and boy, catering's a completely different animal today. That's for sure. It's nice. Yeah.
So WrestleMania being the grand spectacle, it's got to be such an undertaking to put that together, and the crew must be massive day of. Obviously, it starts a couple weeks before setting up everything. Kind of briefly, just walk us through WrestleMania during the day. What are you seeing? At what point are you getting involved? You have some time to kind of just watch it all unfold before you're doing your thing, or?
On WrestleMania, usually, the time when I was there, the ring would usually be set up the day before, which is good because we get that out of the way so everybody else can get their equipment in place that needs to be set in place. And then sometime during the day on Saturday, if it's a Sunday show, the day before WrestleMania, they'd have a hotel. It's designated hotel for everybody on WrestleMania. Pretty much everybody that stays at the hotel is part of the WWE. I mean, there's a few slots in the hotel. Obviously, don't rent out the whole place, but they'd have a ballroom where meetings would take place. You'd get together with your match and go over your match. So during the day of WrestleMania, you pretty much have a walkthrough of everything. So, and just be on call for whatever needs to be done. Get that radio on you again in case they need to call you.
Yep. So 1997 Survivor Series, the Montreal Screwjob, infamous event, obviously right there in Canada. What was your firsthand experience throughout that crazy day?
Well, it felt like business as usual, setting up, getting ready. Now we were told that for that match, Brett versus Sean, the finish was going to be a schmoz, as they call it, which was going to be pandemonium, chaos breaks loose between DX and the Hart Foundation, and we're just going to go out there and try to break it up. So do the best, in the chaos, trying to break up the chaos. So as the match was going on, I'm in gorilla right now, waiting to get the cue to go out and break up the mess. Right. So I'm standing watching the monitor on the desk that Bruce Pritchard is watching. And Bruce Pritchard was the guy who was manning the IFBs. He would talk to the referees to give cues. So he was the one giving us cues that night. And it came to the point where Earl took the bump. And then Sean put Brett in the sharpshooter. And I'm watching this on the monitor, and I think this is leading to where we're going to go with the schmoz at the end. And all of a sudden, because our IFPs, we're all hooked up together. We're not separate. They can't talk to us separately on those things. They're on one frequency. And I hear somebody go, okay, now, Earl, get up now. But that wasn't Bruce, because I'm standing right beside him. He did not pick up the microphone. He did not press the button. It wasn't him. So it had to come from the truck. Who? My best guess is probably, most likely, Kevin Dunn. But I heard it then, and I didn't click in. And then when he got up and he called for the bell and bolted from the ring, everybody was just confusion.
Yeah.
I mean, Davey Boy was there at rings at Gorilla with Owen, and Davey Boy's like, what the F just happened? You know, and then I want to say it was Owen who said, man, they screwed him.
Man.
Yeah.
What was Kevin Dunn like to work with?
He was mostly in a truck. I mean, like, I didn't get to see him during the day, hardly at all. Every once in a while, you know, he would pop out of the truck, but he was mostly in the truck almost all day. So I didn't get to interact with him a lot. He wasn't a people person. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm putting it nicely. He wasn't a people person.
What advice do you have for somebody that's just getting into the business or thinking about getting into the business on any front, but maybe specifically as a referee?
As a referee, what I could suggest to you is to put your ego aside. It's not about you. Learn that, go to people who are veterans, watch tape, learn as much as you can, and learn what the art of being a referee entails. It's not just going out there and pretending to enforce rules. It's not just going out there to count 3 or 10 or 5 or whatever the case may be. There's so much more to it. There's so much more to, communication in the ring and not making it look overt, like you're actually communicating with the wrestlers and passing spots along or whatever the thing, or passing times along. There's an art to how you do that as well. Learn all aspects of the game and try to learn not only referee psychology, but also ring psychology. Ask the talent, you know, why they're doing things. It helps you understand why you should be doing certain things.
Any memories of the late Frank in audio, or even Thomas Carlucci, floor manager?
Frank, another guy who kept things light, always at ringside. He was always good for a laugh. He kept everybody balanced at ringside. Tom was always there. He was a presence there, usually by the Spanish announce table. But Tom was a good guy. He was always a good guy. He just another guy who doesn't get his flowers. You talk about people who should go. Frank should go in the Hall of Fame in that category of backstage people who don't get enough, or unseen people who don't get enough, and Thomas Carlucci as well.
Both been there, both were there a long time, for sure. When it comes to celebrity in pro wrestling, there have been so many celebrities, mostly at WrestleMania, but all different events over the years. What are some of your celebrity interactions over the years?
Man, got to meet Drew Carey, of course, at the infamous Royal Rumble incident where he tried to bribe Kane with all that money. It got slapped out of his hand, and I was the one who had to scoop it all up and try to make sure I got it all, and I gave it back. I swear to God, I gave it all back. But he was cool. Got to meet guys like Dan Marino, Pete Rose, like sports celebrities, Kirby Puckett, guys like that. Who else was there? There's so many. I mean, getting to run into guys like Chuck Norris and get to meet Michael Clark Duncan from the Green Mile.
He was a big fan, right?
Oh, he was a huge fan. And, it was funny because he was at WrestleMania in Anaheim, WrestleMania 2000. And they had that hardcore battle royal or whatever it was called.
Oh yeah.
So I'm standing outside the ring and I hear some guy chirping me from behind, and it's like annoying because I'm trying to pay attention and I've got they're buzzing me here, and this guy's like yakking in behind me. And after the match was done, I turned around like to see who it was, and it's like Michael Clark Duncan. And he's got this smile on his face. And afterwards, he came to the back and he met me. He says, "I hope I wasn't bugging you too much." I said, "Are you kidding me? That was fun, man. Thank you." And we just had a little moment there, right? Just having fun chatting. Then as the show ended, before I went out to tear down, I got on the phone with my wife. I was calling my wife to let her know everything was cool and whatever. And he was walking out and he goes to me, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "My wife." He says, "Give me the phone." I said, "What?" He said, "Give me the phone." So I hand the phone to my wife, to Michael Clark Duncan. He starts talking and he's chatting with her. He says, "No, really, it's me, Michael Clark Duncan." Like she didn't believe it. She thought somebody was ribbing anyway.
Wow.
So he had a little conversation with her. And then before he hands the phone back, he says, "I'll give you back to your skinny leg husband." And he hands the phone back, right? And she goes, "Who was that?" I said, "It was Michael Clark Duncan. It really was." She goes, "The Green Mile guy?" I said, "Yeah." And she was like freaking out. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned WrestleMania 16, the Battle Royal, hardcore Battle Royal. Mm-hmm. How do you keep track of a match like that? You have like 13 guys, people are being busted open the hard way. It's just chaos. How do you keep track of something like that?
That was one of the blessings of having the IFB, because they've got it all figured out there, and they help out. Like in situations like that, you try to remember as much as you can. We talked earlier about not wanting to know too much. This was a situation where you want to know as much as you can because there's so much going on. So you try to keep track, and luckily there's more than one official out there, so that helps with the Ray. So whoever's closest can, take care of what needs to be taken care of. But like I said, the IFB was very essential in a situation like that, because they really helped out by giving us, okay, here comes this. Somebody get ready. Somebody get close.
Right. I see that special piece on your wall of Eddie Guerrero. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your friendship with Eddie over the years?
Eddie and I ended up having a special relationship. Eddie was so cool. Not just as a colleague, but as a friend. We became really, really good friends. And Eddie helped me to not be shy to present ideas. It's kind of like, sometimes even us as referees something will pop in our head, but you're almost reluctant to bring up the idea because you are a referee, and you figure sometimes maybe it's not my place to say anything. And Eddie would be kind of like, he'd be going over a match with somebody, and I'd be sitting in the room and I'd be listening, and then he'd look over at me and go, "What?" I go, "What do you mean what?" He says, "I know that look. You got something. What do you got?" I said, "Nah, just something popped in my head." He said, "Well, tell me. If we like it, we'll try it. If we don't, we won't do it." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he I don't know. It just, when sometimes there's certain people you just form a bond with, and you can't put a finger on what specifically, created that bond.
Sure.
That's what happened with Eddie. It's just like we had a bond, and it just happened. It's almost like it felt like we were buddies for years before we met. I don't know how to explain it another way.
Just a special relationship.
Yeah.
There have been different referee shirts over the years. Of course, the blue button up with the bow tie,
mm-hmm.
The blue SmackDown striped shirt, and of course the white for Raw. What's your favorite over the years? You've donned them all pretty much.
The blue SmackDown shirt. I loved it.
Blue SmackDown.
I know we're supposed to not stand out. Not that it made us stand out, but it differentiated us from other referees, whether it was Raw, because Raw continued to go with the black and white stripes, but it just made us look different.
And who do you think's had the best promo over the years?
Ooh. There have been some good ones. I mean, Punk is obviously, he's in there with that, especially with that pipe bomb. You know, the infamous pipe bomb. For me, I love Jake Roberts. I always thought that Jake Roberts had this tone about him. He never had to raise his voice. He never had to scream. It was always this measured tone that he had. And at times, especially when he was a heel, it was like, ooh, it was believable because it felt authentic, as opposed to someone, okay, I'm playing wrestler, so here's my promo.
Right.
Yeah.
It was captivating. I mean, when he spoke, you listened.
Yes. Yes.
AEW, they're pretty much the number 2 right now in pro wrestling.
Yes.
TNA, obviously, kind of getting back up there and climbing the ranks. With the involvement of WWE, do you think that TNA will ever surpass AEW, or do you think they'll hold that spot firm?
I think there's a definite possibility. I don't want to say that they will, definitely. I mean, it all depends. Everything, it's so unpredictable. This industry is so unpredictable because what works one day sometimes doesn't work the next. TNA and their relationship, I think what TNA is lacking, of course, is what they're working on right now is getting a TV deal that gets more eyes on the product. I think once people get a taste of what they're about, and their product is improving from a presentation standpoint, from a visual standpoint, from a talent standpoint. You may argue that they are the most consistent wrestling show on television right now.
Yeah.
You know, but I think their biggest need is more eyeballs on the product, and of course, having that relationship with WWE/NXT has helped.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us about your involvement in the Reffin' It Up podcast? You've been doing that lately, and where fans can find that.
Well, Reffin' It Up, a little while back. I don't know. Feels like it's been years, but Brian Hebner and RJ, who runs the show there, they reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of the Reffin' It Up podcast. And I said, you know what? That sounds like fun. Let's do it. And now Daniel Spencer, who's the lead official for TNA, has joined us and made it a trio of officials. And I like doing it because I think it's unique. It's different. It comes from a different aspect because a lot of wrestlers and talent have podcasts out there, but I don't believe there's another one other than Mike Chioda, who has a podcast out there. I think it gives a unique perspective, a unique look, and I have fun doing it. You know, I got to do something because I'm supposed to be retired, so I got to figure something to do, and I have fun doing it. And you can pretty much find it anywhere you listen to any podcast. It's out there on so many different platforms, you know, Spotify, Podbean, whatever they are.
Excellent. And we talked about Dave. We talked about Earl. What's it like working with Brian Hebner?
Brian, I don't think it gets enough flowers as well. I think he's underrated as a referee. He's really, really good. He was really good. He says he's retired, but I know he's got more left in him. I don't see him going back on a full-time basis, but I could see him popping in here and there every once in a while. But he's a good dude. He's just he can be very opinionated, but hey, we all can. But his heart's in the right place always.
Was there ever
he does love this business. He really does.
Yeah. Oh, just like Dave and Earl. I mean, they really had a passion for the business for sure. Right. Was there ever a moment where it really looked great on paper? This is going to be fantastic. And maybe it wasn't so hot when it actually panned out.
Whoa. That's another good question. Something that looked good on paper but didn't pan out.
There's no way this is going to be a stinker, but boom, it ended up being a stinker.
Yeah. Oh my God, I think you got me there. Because I'm thinking, and nothing's coming to mind.
Yeah, that's all right.
Is there anything that comes to your mind?
Well, I just meant from a behind the scenes standpoint. I mean, you would see kind of what they were hoping for, you know, in the match. And then, you know, maybe it just didn't turn out to be what they were hoping for exactly.
Mm-hmm. That's a tough one. That's all right.
Could always go back to that some other day. But your memories of ring announcer and somebody who worked in merchandising, Mr. Bill Dunn.
Bill Dunn, you know what? Bill was always a nice guy. He wasn't. We weren't buddy, but we got along very well. See, my interactions with him weren't. It wasn't like with Chimel or guys like that, or Jimmy Miranda or anybody like that. I mean, we were cordial, we were friendly with each other, but it wasn't like we were buddies.
Yeah.
So,
the first contracted employee with the WWF, Howard Finkel, who arguably, not in my mind, but can be arguably, you know, the greatest ring announcer in the history of professional wrestling. A walking encyclopedia for sure, and just one of the nicest guys, most genuine guys. What was it like working with Howard all those years?
Oh, it was a blast. Howard is a great guy. I mean, you know, you walk in the room, Jimmy Korderas, how are you? You know, it's that Howard Finkel voice. It's almost like he's announcing you when he says hello.
Right.
But Howard just loved being around us, and you felt that. Yeah. And being friends with Howard was cool because he was a breath of fresh air because he was so down to earth in a business where everybody's larger than life and they feel like they have to project all the time. You know, Howard never did.
And as we finish up here, you know, the lost art of tag team wrestling and also kind of the lost art of the manager role. It's not the same as it once was, not as colorful as it once was. What's your take on that? Kind of losing tag team wrestling the way it used to be, and managers, how over the top they were.
The thing about tag team wrestling now is I think they, especially on the heel side of tag team wrestling, they've lost the art of manipulating the referee to get their heat. If you know what I mean, the distraction part of it. I mean, people say, well, that's too old school, but you know what? It still works today. You want to get heat on a heel tag team by cheating. It has to be behind the referee's back, but it also has to look like the heels have manipulated the referee as opposed to just going, the manager is going to pop up on the apron, go over there, and we're going to do our thing behind your back. There are ways to do it. I brought up Eddie Guerrero before when he was a heel, him and Chavo were heels. They were great at doing that. You know, Arn and Tully, another team that would do it. You know, using the manager in a way to that again gets heel heat, gets heat on them. I miss that. I miss the tags where it takes no more than a 5 count for them to get in a double team move and get out.
Right.
Everybody has to get in like 13 spots before after every tag, and the referee's stuck there. I don't know. There are some great tag teams out there today. Don't get me wrong. There are. I think the fundamentals, the old school rule enforcement of tag team wrestling needs to come back just to give them an opportunity to use that tool.
Yeah. 2015, you were inducted into the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. Take us back to that night, the Rhode Island Convention Center, Providence, Rhode Island. What was that experience like?
It was amazing. I mean, like, again, you talk about humbling experiences. That was humbling, and getting to be there with some some old colleagues and old friends. It was amazing getting to see Howard there. Was amazing. It was a special moment. It feels good to be recognized for your accomplishments because, again, we talked about how referees fly under the radar for their, I believe, for their importance, and it was amazing to be recognized with such an honor. It was incredible.
A very popular segment that you've created, Ref and Rant. It's become quite the talk of the town, whether good or controversial. But, I always find it to be very entertaining, and I tune into every one of them. How did that start? What made you want to do something like that? And what's that process been like?
I have to give credit where credit is due. Again, that one has my wife written all over it because she would hear me rant about something I see on TV, and she said, put that on video, put it on social media. I said, I can't rant for half an hour on social. So turn it into a minute, turn it into just around a minute. I said, yeah, but I got to come up with something every day. She goes, yeah, you do it every day, so why not? So she sits there, she films it for me, and I do my rants. And that was the genesis of it. And now it's more for fun now for me. It's for me to get stuff out there, and any opinion I have on there, it isn't motivated to generate clicks or likes or anything like that. I'm just giving an honest opinion. I mean, I do it anyway, so why not do it there?
Right. Well, in closing, how do you want to be remembered? What do you want your legacy to be?
I would love to be remembered as someone who was there and was someone that the talent, everybody that I got to work with could count on, to be there for them. I mean, that was the most important thing for me, and that's how I would love to be remembered.
Awesome. Fans, stay with us for the bonus segment, Overtime, with Jimmy Korderas. Jimmy, thank you so much for taking the time to put in for part 1 and part 2. We've really enjoyed this interview, and it's been a great deep dive into your career. So thank you.
Thank you, buddy.